Hey everybody, Neil Malik with Knack Training here, bringing another Everyday Office video. In today's video, this is more of like a big picture recommendation type of thing in your slide decks. So one of the biggest problems that people have when they hear my recommendations on how to build a decent PowerPoint slide deck is I'll often tell them to simplify their message, to cut down on the amount of detail that they're communicating to people. So for example, when we talk about the organization, maybe you only talk about the people at the high level of the organization. When you talk about a timeline, maybe you just talk about the big picture steps. You don't really talk about the incremental nature of things. When you talk about a set of data, maybe you focus on one element within that set of data. Maybe you cut down on the amount of information in a chart so that it's a simple 82% as opposed to the different elements broken down. And every time people see things like this, they go, yeah, but people are going to want to know more. They're going to want to dig in deeper. And we can do that. We can give them that deeper level of information, but we don't have to put it in the live presentation to begin with. We can simplify, we can assume that people will get the big picture idea and will agree with us. But then we can plan for situations that go a little bit farther than that. So let's say, for example, we wanted to talk about the org chart. Well, you might want to make another slide in your org chart. Let's say make a new slide that's title and content here. And the content will be a smart art graphic, and there'll be a hierarchy, and it'll be an org chart, but it'll be a really, really in-depth, detailed org chart. And I won't do a lot of them here, but you can imagine, you know, person. Okay, so you can tell, you know, you would have a much more complex org chart. But you don't have to show this to people in the presentation if they don't ask about your more complex org chart. Instead, you can go to slide 3 here, go up to your slideshow tab and hide the slide. And we'll come back to this in a little bit. Same thing goes with the timeline. Maybe with the timeline, they ask you questions about what the process design process looks like. So again, you can go to the Home tab, you can add a new slide, that's title and content, and this will be our process. And we'll do another diagram, but this diagram will have much more detail about the process. Let's say it looks a little something like this, and there are many stages, and we describe things with lots of different pieces of information. Okay, so this is our very complex process that breaks down within the process design process. Okay, but again, if nobody asks us about this, let's start off with it hidden. Hide the slide. Or again, if somebody asks you about that 82%, right? You might make another slide. In that slide, there might be a chart, maybe a pie chart, and this is the full breakdown, not just the 82 versus 18% thing. But again, if nobody asks you about it, let's start off with that slide on the slideshow tab, hidden. Now, the first thing that you can do at any point in the process is, let's say that you are looking at the org chart. If we start off with the org chart, we can right-click on our screen right here. And depending on what version of PowerPoint you have, sometimes you'll have this see all slides possibility. Sometimes you'll have a little list of all the slides. If I go to see all slides, it shows me, oh, there's my hidden slide right there, and you can switch to it. And anytime that you go to a hidden slide, if you right-click, you can go to the last viewed slide. So you can shuffle back to that other org chart. But I would say that I don't like right-clicking on slides in the middle of presentations. I really prefer planning ahead and taking the time to make buttons. So if, for example, people wanted to know about the full org chart, you can go to the the Insert tab. You could add let's say a little box or something, and the little box would just say something like full org, right? Something like that. Now you can make this very subtle. You could even make it invisible if you really wanted to. Okay, and maybe change the text color. There we go. So again, it could be invisible. I'm going to make it subtle instead of invisible. And then once you've got that, all you have to do is go back to the Insert tab and insert a link. Insert that link to a place in this document and go to the slide that's the rest of the org chart, and then hit OK. You can see I've got the same thing on this little donut chart here. I've got this More Detail button right here. I can go to my link button and make sure that it's connected with the slide that has the more details on it, and hit OK. And so now if I start off from this slide, for example, I start the presentation. If somebody asks me how the 82% is broken down, I can click on the button that says More Detail, and I can show them the additional detail. And again, right-click, and I can choose Last Viewed. I would go one layer deeper than this, though. The nice thing about this is once you've got this hidden slide, it doesn't technically have to go right after the slide that it's related to. So if I think about this as a takeaway document, really these things that give us additional detail, these things could be considered to be almost the appendix of our presentation, the supplemental information. So I might drag these hidden slides down here towards the bottom. Let's say right there for that one, and let's grab this process here and drag it down here. And what I'll do is I'll click on this slide right here. That is our first hidden slide of the 3 hidden slides we decided to make. Go up here to the Home tab and decide to add a section. So I'll add a section right there. I'll call this the appendix. And you'll notice that we also have this other section up here, the default section. We'll go ahead and rename that to something like presentation. So we have the section of the presentation called the presentation, and we have the section called the appendix here at the end. And all of our buttons, let's say this button right here that goes from our minimized org chart to our full org chart. Again, let's just make sure if we go to the Insert tab and we click on Link, we can see that it still goes to slide number 10, that hidden slide, even though we shuffled it around. And now what's really nice is if I take this and I export this. So let me go ahead and save the presentation really quickly. Go to File, choose Export, and create some handouts from this. Well, then think about how this is going to come out looking in the finished product as the handout or the takeaway document. In here, we're going to have the normal stream of the presentation, and then if people are really interested in it, they can flip all the way down to the end where they can see the appendix. So you can see here's the normal section of the presentation. And then we get down here where our additional data comes into play, and I'll just right-click right here in the table, insert another row above this one, and this row above it will say this is the appendix, right? And the appendix will come right above all of these additional slides. I can kind of squeeze this down to make this the title, like so. And so now people are able to consume the additional hidden slides on top of the presentation they're already getting. So being able to take your additional detail, break it out into additional slides so that you have it during the presentation and so that people can see it during the post-presentation area can be really clarifying and also give you a degree of security and confidence when you're delivering your presentation.